Hello. I hope everyone's feeling really good today. It's a bright sunny day where I am. It's going to end in rain, but it was bright and sunny for the morning. Meant I got yard work done. But anyway, today I want to talk about disability support pension. The disability support pension is something that I'm actually on, and I'm starting to feel like we're forgotten about. Whenever I see people talk about raising the rate of social security levels and that, it's like they forget that the people on disability support pension even exist, and that it's a payment, and that there's 810,000 people on disability support pension. There's 5.1 million people in Australia with a disability. But yeah, the apart from indexation, disability support pension hasn't gone up at all in years and years and years. During the pandemic, everyone on New Start had their New Start doubled, bringing it up to the Henderson poverty line, or $250 more than what disability support pension is. At that time, we all stayed quiet. We stayed quiet because at least people on Social Security were getting a pay rise, and we didn't want to rock the boat. Governments from both persuasions took that to mean that we don't matter and we'll keep quiet, which is true. We've all got disabilities, and with our disabilities, the last thing we want to do is get involved in lobbying the government to make our lives better. But on the other hand, people on disability support pension are living in cars. Other people on disability support pension are one step off homelessness. Because of the rates of poverty in this country, they're a very exploited group. So, to give you an example, if we're talking, say, how could I put this? People on disability support pension are very open to being exploited by other people who are in poverty, whose poverty drives them to do horrible things that they wouldn't normally morally do. Even if they would normally morally do it, the morals are so bad you just wouldn't do it. But poverty today makes it very easy to exploit people. That's how you get elder abuse. That's how you get people abusing mentally ill people and things like that. That abuse usually lies within access to their bank accounts. Um, and none of that's ever talked about. It's very rarely talked about in the media. Um, I have a news article here from the 13th of November 2024. It's about the government's response to disability support pension, and it really is a great example of what I mean. Government urged to transform disability support pension after its lackluster response to the Senate report. A coalition of disabilities and social service groups has called for further reform of the disability support pension, DSP, and condemned the federal government for its official response to a Senate inquiry into the payment. In 2021, a months-long Senate inquiry into the proposed intent and adequacy of the DSP received 134 submissions. I think I may have sent one in, I'm not sure, and held 4 public sessions, of which I couldn't get to any. I remember that. The inquiry reported early the following year While the Morrison government was still in power and heard overwhelming evidence, the DSP was inadequate and that its overly complex and difficult to navigate claims process led to inequitable outcomes. It made 30 recommendations to change the way the payment was administered and assessed to make it more accessible. More than 2 years later, the federal government last week, so that's the Labor government, tabled its official response in the Senate, stating that a substantive government response was no longer appropriate due to the passage of time since the report was tabled. That has upset advocates in the sector, who on Wednesday released a joint statement calling for action to address barriers to accessing the DSP, the risk of poverty for recipients, and to reform how eligibility is assessed and avenues for disputed resolution. It's unaccountable that this report has sat on the shelf for over 2 years and received such a lackluster response. The government has not explained why the report's recommendations are no longer relevant. People with Disability Australia President, what an odd name. People with Disability Australia President Marique Jonkers said, every day people with disability struggle to afford basic essentials of life due to a system that does more to exclude them than support them. Australian Councils of Social Services CEO Cassandra Goldie said. Okay, that's a strange thing to have in a news article. In a statement, Social Service Minister Amanda Rusher said to government, now this lady here is one of the most cold-hearted, we haven't had such a cold-hearted minister for social services since, what was her name? I've forgotten her name. We used to hang shit on her dresses. In a statement, Social Service Minister Amanda Rushworth said the government has been working on a number of disability reforms, including changes to employment programs and responding to the Royal Commission in close consultation with the disability support community. That's all bullshit, by the way. Our government recognises that the issues raised in the Senate committee impact many Australians, and we note the recommendations, she said. So they noted the fact that we all live in poverty. That's wonderful. I note this report was not responded to by the formal Liberal government, so that excuses Labor for it. Both of these parties are shocking. Left without resources and necessity to live. There are 805,715 DSP recipients in December 2024. The DSP is separate to the National Disability Insurance Scheme and available to people with permanent disability whose conditions prevent them from working. Now that's important. That's why it's more money than New Start. We can't get a job. We have no prospect of having superannuation and things like that, right? The money we get is the money we get. There's no avenue for change, especially if you have the mental health issues that I have, especially since I now have my own house and secure housing for the rest of my life. Usually when bosses start yelling at me now, and I found out the last time I took a job, I'll tell them to go fuck themselves. I don't need their fucking job. And that's part of my mental illness. When people start losing the plot at me, I clip into a different zone and I leave. Applicants need to meet medical and non-medical rules, the latter of which includes things like residence status. Claims are assessed against impairment tables which were updated last year after a review, separate to the Senate inquiry. Ms. Rushworth said the release of the new tables included several changes relevant to recommendations in the inquiry's report. The advocacy group said while that represents a starting point for reform, the failure to act on more comprehensively on more systematic flows has left people with disability without the financial resources necessary to live. The maximum base rate for disability support pension is $10.47 and 10 cents a fortnight, or 74 cents dollars a day. A recipient's assets and income, as well as their partner's assets and income, can reduce the amount. The Henderson poverty line, one of the most common measurements for poverty estimates income. The Henderson poverty line is what they raised New Start to during the pandemic. Just saying. So we use the Henderson poverty line. That is the government's poverty line. Right? So any payment that's below it is a payment in poverty, is a poverty payment. So the Labor government pays poverty payments, but don't worry, so does the Liberal Party. So they're both equal of the same evil crime. Is $1,224 a fortnight or $87 a day places someone in poverty. The Senate inquiry heard many DSP applicants and recipients were living in poverty. Well, they've got no choice. They're already getting they're $200 a fortnight below the poverty line, and somebody on New Start is $400 a fortnight below the poverty line. Dr. Goldie said a bureaucratic, stressful, impersonal claims progress pushed many DSP applicants onto the lower $55 a day for job seeker payment. Unlike DSP, job seeker has mutual obligations. And this is why when you go and vote, I don't agree with the Labor Party. I think they're just as dangerous as the Liberal Party when it comes to this country. But the last time the Liberal Party were in government, they took me off the DSP and put me on New Start. The end result of all that was the government probably spent about $250,000 on mental health care relating to me, due to the suicide attempts that mutual obligations brought out in me due to my mental illness. I'm sure that cost Geelong Hospital and the Swanson Mental Health Centre a couple of $100,000 to deal with all those issues. What for? To save a few $100 from me being on the disability support pension rather than being on a New Start. It certainly didn't work out financially, but I'm terrified if the Liberals get in and Labor's done such a shit job in government, there's a very good chance they might put me back on New Start, and I don't think I could survive having to do mutual obligations again. In fact, I know I won't. I'll make sure I don't. That's the truth with dealing with people with mental illness. You stuff around with us too much. Our reactions of self-harm are very dangerous to ourselves, and the government should be very careful about how they deal with people with DSP, and driving us further and further into poverty is going to cost people their lives. There's no nicer way of saying that. About $21.3 billion was paid in DSP during the 2023-24 financial year, according to the most recent. Of roughly 1,113,000 DSP claims last year, 50,000 were thrown out, according to the annual report. The rejection rate of 44% was amongst the highest of any major payment. And that's the other issue. So many people are forced onto New Start that should be getting DSP just so that the government can save a little bit of money. And the end result of that is people collapse within the system. And like my friend says, if the safety net is so close to the ground it doesn't stop you from hitting it, what's the point of the safety net? But yeah, that's all I wanted to point out. As somebody on DSP, I really feel like we've been forgotten about by everybody, by the government and by everybody else. Um, Gee, my videos are always so happy and cheery. Please like and subscribe if you've watched a video all the way to the end. Um, you don't have to. There's no rule saying you have to. I feel like I'm begging, asking you to. So here I am begging for you to like and subscribe. Everybody have a good day, and remember, if you're entitled to redress, chances are you'll win a civil lawsuit. Speak to decent lawyers. If you're in Victoria, have a chat to Arnold, Thomas and Becca. The reason I have a house and secure housing is because they made that possible. I can't think any more highly of any lawyers than I do of Arnold, Thomas and Becca. And no, I'm not paid to do this. No one's paying somebody that has 10. Hey, I got 11 views in my last video. Thank you for that. Have a good day. Bye.